Pleasure's all mine.
Karibu sana, and congratulations once again for making it to the list of 100 Changemakers 2024.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so to start with, I want you to introduce yourself to the listeners, to the audience, and then you share with us your career journey as you go.
My name is Mpoki Thomson. I am currently the executive editor for Mwananchi Communications Limited. That basically means that I run the content business. So Mwananchi Communications is a media company, 360 media company. So we are vested in digital and print as well. We do have other departments, but when it comes to the content creation, which is the core of the business, yeah, that's where I take charge as executive editor. I've worked for Mwananchi for 10 years, yeah, going to 11 since 2014. I started off as a sub-editor, then became features editor, then became managing editor for The Citizen, and now I am the executive editor. So it has been quite a journey. Okay, so one of the interesting things that people get to learn about me is that I studied law. So I have a law degree, but when I pursued law, I did not pursue law to practice. I studied law because it gives you an expansive knowledge into different sectors. You know, you study about business, you study about human rights, you study about a whole vertical of things. So that was the reason why I studied law. But while I was studying Tumaini University, I was also working already with Bang magazine. It's a magazine. It was a lifestyle magazine. So I was already studying while working at the same time. I used to make trips to work, and then after work, evening classes to university. So after I graduated, that was back in 2013. Yes, I worked for Bang for about 4 years. So in 2014, I moved to Mwananchi, more mainstream media. So my passion for journalism dates even before my university days, back in high school. I started in Uganda, and when you're a Tanzanian in Uganda, there's this thing about Tanzanians don't know how to speak English and all that, but mine was a bit different because I was a Tanzanian studying literature. So people were so fascinated that, but then that just showed my passion for the literary word, because I used to love writing poems, I used to write letters. So it just the whole experience of putting words into text, that's where it all started. So even after graduating, I continued with my passion. People told me that, you need to go to the one year to become an advocate. I was like, you know what, I think just a degree is enough for now, because that's the whole basis of why I got into this entire legal academia, just to get the knowledge, and then my plan is to continue pursuing journalism. Yeah, so I got into the field of journalism. Mostly my initial entry point was into entertainment and lifestyle. And then because I started as an assistant writer, and then I became an assistant editor, and then I became the editor-in-chief for Bang magazine. So when I left Bang magazine, I was the editor-in-chief, and then now I moved to The Citizen. So throughout the years, what has driven my passion is not more of the roles that I've held, but the impact of the work that I've been able to put out there within the journalism field in its expansive nature. So that has been the journey so far, and it's been from 2010 to 2025. So that's about 15 years, give or take. Yes. I did study journalism though. In 2018, I had to go and do a postgrad at the University of Dar es Salaam. Yeah. So I think right now all journalists have to be accredited. So I do have the accreditation. I mean, so the media field, I think it's one of the most regulated professions in Tanzania. And so the challenges are there. When you're working within a space that has this regulatory oversight, you're working within a specific confines, and that's directly the government. So we are supposed to be the fourth estate. So we're supposed to be the watchdogs. But then we are watchdogs that are working within these legal parameters. So the challenges have been as far as, how far can we push the canvas in terms of the content that we push out there. But with challenges also come opportunities. And one of the opportunities that I've been able to witness and first-hand experience within the media industry is just the evolving nature of the sector itself. Back when I started in 2010, we were mostly, print legacy media. And then over the years, we've seen how the entire profession, the entire industry has evolved. Yeah. So it has come with its own set of opportunities. So there are ways that you try to navigate the challenges, but then also tap into the potential of the opportunities that also come with the profession itself. So, I think one thing is that in life you should never shy away from pursuing your passion, but also being ambitious. I remember right after I'd finished my high school, Form 6 in Uganda, I sent an email to Bakari Machumu. Back then he was the executive editor, and up until today there was a time I was searching through my emails to see Bakari's Gmail, and I saw the first email I sent to him. I was requesting to submit an article as a contributor. But then that was something that, so people were like, okay, you're just from high school, and the Citizen is already an established newspaper. Do you think they will even consider publishing your article? But then he responded, and so it kind of gave me that sense that, if you're passionate about something, if you desire to achieve something, then you should go for it. So that was the first defining moment, and I did not even know that 4 years later I would come and work for the Citizen, because that was back in 2010. And then later on, when the Citizen approached me, gave me an offer, I was like, okay, let me jump right in. And then I remember in 2021, yes, right during the COVID era, we were just coming out of the COVID bubble. I got the offer to be promoted to be the managing editor. So I have a background in entertainment. I have a background in all these non-business type of focus areas, specialization. Yes, and the Citizen is a business paper. So, but then again, that just goes to double down on the ambitious sort of nature that I have. I did not back down from the challenge. So I was like, this is an opportunity and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to thrive at it. So again, if I would have said that maybe no, I'm not capable to do, to take on this role, I would have shied away, and then maybe that opportunity would have passed. Same happened, due to the way you conduct yourself, the way you work as a team, the way you support, other people, other than just looking at, your own accomplishments. I think that defines anyone. So I think my overall approach into looking at the impact of the work that I tend to do while working with others and not shying away from taking on any challenge, it has defined it and it has shaped the journalist that I am today. When I do my role as a journalist or as an editor in the specific tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis, we don't really look at maybe the accolades or the recognition, but the impact of the work that we do is noticeable. And we often say that editors are unsung heroes. Oftentimes you see people getting awards, for the best writers, but there are people who work in the background. But I would say, fortunate for me, the way I approach the journalism profession or my specific role is that I do not sit behind a desk. I mean, you came into this office and I think you noticed that oftentimes I was not even behind the chair. I was like moving up and down, because I work better when I'm on my feet. So with that, it means that during the 15 years that I've been in the field, I have written stories that have touched on specific sectors, stories that have had social impact. At home, I still have the first article that I wrote, which talked about street children. And so the idea was, this is it's a neglected part of society, and their story needs to be told. So now the impact, or just knowing that the story might reach someone who might be able to help them. And at times we do get feedback from the stories that we write. You can profile someone who needs assistance, who needs help, and then an institution, an individual, a philanthropist reaches out to you and tells you that, I want to help this person. So that gives you're able to see the tangible results of the work that you put out there, the impact. Now, when I took over as managing editor for The Citizen, my idea was to make The Citizen the gateway to Tanzania. Anyone outside Tanzanian borders who wants to understand what is happening in Tanzania, the first touch point should be The Citizen. So I started doing these big interviews with with ambassadors, high commissioners, and all these international dignitaries. It was very intentional, and now the impact of that has been very vivid. Right now, whenever any international dignitary, any minister comes to Tanzania, they want to first interface with The Citizen to communicate to the wider public. So just knowing that you have built together with the team something that has high impact, something that gets the attention of policymakers, investors, tourists, it's something that, I don't know, it's a legacy that will outlive me, definitely. So it's a brand identity that I have been able to build together with the team, because I have a team of over 20-30 people that I work with. So together we've been able to shape the narrative of Tanzania to the world, how people view Tanzania. And again, that is the same mandate, that's the same mantle that I'm taking on in this broader role as executive editor to make Mwananchi Communications Limited an institution, a media house that empowers the nation, that empowers Tanzania. And we do that through storytelling. So what I would say is that the regulatory framework governing journalism in its wider sense should not work to limit the way journalists, the way media conveys information, because we are the fourth estate. You do have the executive, you have the judiciary, you have the legislature, and then now you have media, which is supposed to put all these other three organs to account. We are supposed to hold them accountable. And what we do at Mwananchi Communications Limited is known as public interest journalism. So with public interest journalism, what we do is that we look at issues of national interest that are pertinent to the public. So with that, there is definitely going to come a point where we scrutinize, where we investigate different projects that are being undertaken by the government, but also by the private sector. So again, if there is any nuances of political overreach, they will definitely affect how we operate as media. So for us, our rallying call has always been, let media do its work in a professional manner. We do have ethos. There are tenets of journalism, credibility, veracity. You're supposed to have diverse voices. You're supposed to not only take one side of of a story. You contextualize by giving the other side. They're also a voice of a part or an opportunity to reply. So with all these in mind, that means that is as far as the regulatory constraint should be, governing us to ensure that we work within these specific parameters, but there shouldn't be an overreach into now interfering with editorial independence or the independence of journalism or journalists in their wider sense. Because again, that will definitely not only impact us, it will also impact the way Tanzanians are able to consume content, and also it will affect their critical thinking. So us as media, that means we are supposed to analyze this, not looking at 5 years from now, but 25 years from now, what would that be like? So again, I mentioned that the media is evolving. So the type of narrative that we are producing right now is not going to be the same 10 years from now. So we're supposed to work ahead of our time. So that means anyone who works within the journalism field has to be very agile. We need to be quick on our feet. We need to be very adaptive, very innovative, and receptive of all the changes that come. So if anyone asks me that, can the Citizen do more? We absolutely can. And we are working on improving ourselves. That's why whenever you visit any of our online platforms on a day-to-day basis, you will see different content that we push out there. We at times push the envelope a bit too far. People think that then it's just us trying to create the new future. We are reimagining the future of content creation, the future of storytelling. So there's always room for improvement. The opportunities are quite in abundance. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. With one thing that we have noted is that despite the changing landscape of journalism or the changing landscape of media, the appetite of knowing what's happening around you, the appetite of knowing how something that is unrelated to your industry is going to impact you is still there. So that means content creation, that means conveying news will still remain critical. What has changed is that right now we're talking about a multi-platform ecosystem where people are able to access content, access news, not just on newspapers, but through broadcast, which is considered legacy. But we have this plethora of online channels where people are able to access content. Now that is a positive and a negative to us as media. The positive side is that credibility remains key to anyone who wants to access news for use. News for use is that you access something that is of impact to you, something that you can take this to the bank, something that that you can rely on it to make informed decisions. So when you ask me, will Mwananchi remain relevant? Absolutely, absolutely. And when we look at the projection, because Tanzania generally as a country is going to be one of the most populated countries, not only in Africa but in the world. By the year 2050 we'll be home to 100 million people. So that means with each passing generation there comes a generation of people who want to know more. So there comes a generation of people who are very adaptive. So by the nature of how we operate as a company that is not resigned to the legacy state, we are quick to adapt to the changing nature. It just goes to show that 10, 20 years from now we will still remain relevant. Our core business will still remain relevant, however in a different format. I don't know how to answer that question. That's specifically because I've been in the industry for 15 years. So I started when I was quite young. So that's why I'm not that old. I'm not old, I would say, but I have more than 15 years of experience in the industry. So in the 15 years, I have never received any accolade, I would say, for what I've been doing, and it's not really something that I consider. Yes, because when you work as a journalist, the reward that we get basically is to see the change that is happening because of what we do, right? As I mentioned, when someone who needs assistance, and we come and tell their stories, and then they're able to get that assistance, or if we are able to avert any potential national threat or national catastrophe through storytelling, and then we see government taking action, we see the private sector taking action, that is the reward that we get. And when you transition from a reporter to now an editor, where you're mostly on the backdrop, we do what, as I mentioned earlier, a thankless job. And we do this because not that we want to get recognized or to get the rewards, but we know the impact that our work is having. At times we do get the feedback, from our readers. We do get the feedback from some of our stakeholders. And when it comes even to some of our advertisers, people come to the Citizen, people come to Mwananchi, people come to all these media houses because they do see the impact. So to me, as a journalist, getting an accolade has never been top of mind. However, it is appreciated. I mean, if it's always good when you get recognized for what you do, because again, it's sort of cements the work or the effort that you put into something. So when I was first contacted that I'm being considered to be listed among the 100 changemakers in Tanzania, and considering that just the previous year my former boss Bakari Machumu, who was the managing director for Mwananchi, was mentioned on that prestigious list, I was like, okay, this is something good. I even reposted it. When you go to my social media, I think I pinned it on my Instagram feed, because again, as I mentioned, it's not something that I look forward to, but it's something that I appreciate, because it not only shows my own effort, but the effort of the people behind me. That's why whenever anyone asks me about my journey, I've not been able to achieve it alone. I do work with a team of people who have challenged me, who have shaped me, who have supported me throughout this entire journey. So just that being recognized, it goes to show that when you put in the work, rewards will come at the end of the day. Again, another interesting question, because just to be honest, working in a field for 15 years, can seem a bit repetitive. However, with us in media, we do have, I would say, the exclusion because every day there's something new. However, I remember, because I've been at Mwananchi for 11 years, there was a time where some of the tasks that I was doing seemed repetitive and I wanted to pivot. And the moment I wanted to make that decision, I got an opportunity. Former managing director Bakari approaches me and he's like, I want you to manage the Citizen. And so the same thing, after running the Citizen for about 4 to 5 years, again I wanted to pivot. Another opportunity came. We want you to take over the entire department as executive editor, and now I'm currently in that role. So of course I won't be executive editor forever. I do also have my personal goals to evolve beyond this. However, if one would have asked me when I was starting out as a journalist, back in 2010, that where would this journey take me? Because there is a perception that journalism is not a field people get into if they want to succeed in life, because it's not a well-paying job in the Tanzanian context. Many people study journalism and
that's a fact though.
It is a fact. It is a fact because I work in the industry, so I do know. I do know, and that's just it's due to the limitations of the opportunities from a business perspective, especially for privately owned media. State-owned media, they do have the government support and subsidies and all that. But for private media, it's a whole different field where a media survives based on what they get in return for their investment. So again, to me personally, I did not anticipate that I would be here where I am today at such an age. So that means that with what I would call success, all the milestones that I've been able to achieve, I still have room for so much more. So God willing, my journey has just begun.
Okay.
I would say I'm big into like working out and spending a lot of me time. I dabble into that quite a bit when I'm not in the office. I try to make it more of a lifestyle. But unfortunately, and I'm just being brutally honest here, is that my life is so much tied to my career at the moment that I don't get enough time to explore who I am beyond the newsroom. And that's just a fact. It's not healthy, but that's just the reality. I am employed, but I do not have a typical 9 to 5 job. So I don't have a routine type of day-to-day kind of way I execute my duties, because right now, since I'm the executive editor, so there's a lot of like management type of activities that I'm supposed to oversee, but then again I'm supposed to run a newsroom. So with that, it just depends on, it's kind of like each day is customized in its own way. There are those strategic meetings that you have to attend, but then I'm overseeing 3 products, that is the Citizen, Mwananchi and Mwanaspoti, and they are daily, so they have to be produced daily. And the way news works is 24/7 basically. So at times you don't even sleep. So what I would say, how I would define my typical day, is that I start by just analyzing what's happening around me nationally. So I look at what the type of news that the Citizen covers, Mwananchi covers, Mwanaspoti covers. From a business, you're now looking at business, and then you have to look at politics and national affairs, and then you have to look at sports and entertainment, and just make it make sense to our audiences. So after that, as I mentioned, there's these strategic meetings that, because I'm part of the executive committee, the EXCO, so there are those strategic meetings where maybe you have to go and meet the stakeholders. Now, what is constant in terms of how I live my day-to-day office kind of lifestyle is that deciding what are some of the biggest stories that are supposed to be produced on our platforms, basically. That is a constant, because you have to be on top of that. So here's the thing. I do read, but I don't think I read to the extent that people think I read. Yeah, I do a lot of online research. I watch a lot of podcasts. I stream a lot of content online, content that speaks to the evolving nature of the world. Not movies and stuff. No, content that is that provides analysis into things that matter to us as humans. It could be issues to do with the economy, could be issues to do with politics, issues to do with sports, and what have you. That is how I get a grasp of what's happening around me, and that is how I'm able to even inform my team and look out for this, look out for that. So I do a lot of online research through these different international and also national content platforms, because they're a key source. That's why one day you find me interviewing a politician, the other day you find me interviewing a scientist, an economist, an innovator, because I do a lot of research of what's happening around me and what is shaping the world. So when it comes to the extracurricular or what I read, that is mostly what I do.
You're using it?
Yes, we are using AI. Artificial intelligence has disrupted multiple industries, and media is one of them. I don't think if there's any sector that has not been influenced or affected or disrupted by AI. So for us as media, we are using, as you mentioned, generative AI, and it has streamlined our work processes. What would take maybe back in the days 6 hours to execute, through AI you can take an hour, even 30 minutes. However, there's always a caution, because I remember one time people say that it's not those who don't use AI that will be replaced, it's those who cannot adapt to using AI. So you're supposed to add that layer of human intelligence in using AI. You don't just let it do everything. Yeah, so in the newsroom at Mwananchi Communications Limited, our journalists, our editors, everyone who works as a content creator uses AI. We are developing an AI policy, because again, if we do not create governance around how people use technology, there is room for misuse. And right now, I think there is a lot of misinformation and disinformation that is being put out there through online channels, because everyone is now a journalist, or everyone is now a content creator. Now, how do we create the difference? How do we differentiate ourselves from that batch, yet again be able to also adapt to using AI? So we use AI to fact check even some of the content in terms of doing research. We use AI to shape some of the narratives in order for it to make sense to our audiences. We use AI to streamline or to do the repetitive type of tasks. That those tasks that they were very repetitive back in the days. Right now, technology has taken that burden off our hands. So that is how we use AI to become more efficient, but maintaining that journalistic integrity, maintaining that creativity, that human touch. I would say that journalism is more than a profession. It's a calling. You just need to know that your voice is powerful. Whatever it is that you put out there has an impact, and that is what should really drive your passion. But what should underpin that drive is ensuring that you stick to the facts. There might be a lot of hype, and especially right now during this digital age where everyone is a content creator, if you aspire to become a journalist, what should underpin that drive is veracity, sticking to the facts. You need to become as credible as possible. In a world where we have a lot of echo chambers that at times tend to spew disinformation, you need to be the voice for the voiceless in a way that can be trusted, in a way that is factual. So don't join the field for the sake of gaining fame. That will not really serve any purpose. And our call for any journalists, any aspiring journalists out there is, let us be a bit more meaningful in terms of putting content that will positively impact society, because we want to drive change. And as we're driving this change, we want society to move with us in a positive way. So we need to take the role that we have been given and use it in a way that will have positivity for posterity beyond the generation of today, because the content that is created today, leaving aside the digital footprint that can be left behind, will be able to be traced even for generations to come. So now, what kind of legacy do we want to leave behind? Just stay true to your passion, at the end of the day, the recognition, the rewards will come. I mean, it is a threat to the credibility of journalism, because we get boxed into one definition that, you know, a journalist of today, they cannot be trusted. There's a lot of fake news. One of the ways that we can mitigate the impact that this information is having, because it's very deliberate, you know, people create content using AI. There's a lot of content that is out there that is AI generated, a lot of deep fakes. So the intention for creating such type of content, of course, is definitely to mislead the audiences. So us as a credible media house, for any other credible media house that is out there, what we need to do is to ensure that we debunk the fake news that is being pushed on any channel, because when people use our brands, just yesterday there was a post on IG that used Mwananchi brand to, you know, spread disinformation. Yeah. So now, how do we counter that? So setting the narrative straight, ensuring that we fact check each and every story that is put out there, or for anyone who uses our brand to, you know, spread this information, it is up to us now to set the record straight, to communicate what is actually factual. So debunking all this misinformation and disinformation is key, and we also need to tap into technology to counter that, because they're using technology to spread such type of content that is not based on facts. So we need to also be very adaptive and use that. And for anyone out there who's, you know, meddling in such type of content, just know that it has an impact, a negative impact. Yeah. You know, wars have been started in different countries because of media. Just the power that media has to influence an entire community. So just imagine if we remain resigned to this situation where we let everyone create content. Yeah. It's a threat. It's a threat. So yeah, we do have to create more guardrails in terms of how do we ensure that what we put out there, or what anyone puts out there, is factual, is based on facts, and will not have any negative impact. There are a lot of changes that we wish to see in our country. So for a state that is still developing in many of its spheres, be it economically or politically, what would ensure that there is sustainability in how we develop is let us not be partisan and compromise the better state of our country for personal interests. So for anyone who's been given an opportunity to lead, be it at, you know, a company, private company level, or even in government, what will ensure that the development that we are creating right now, the ground that we are laying right now, will benefit the next generation, is if we become as selfless as possible. You know, for any country to prosper, it goes back to the leadership. How are you creating a space, an environment that enables others to thrive? Not an environment that, you know, you only look inward, that you look at your own personal benefit, because oftentimes Africa has failed to develop because those who are given power to lead, they oftentimes misuse that to benefit themselves. So one change that I would wish to see is us having more leaders who are not self-centered, leaders who look to lead a nation for the benefit of every citizen, leaders who wish to create a legacy of prosperity beyond their own vision. So they need to be a leader that looks at the entire nation, because that is the only way that we get to thrive as a country. Even when I have conversation with different investors, it all goes down to the leadership that we have. So if we address that vertical, although there's going to be a ripple effect in all these other areas, in academia, in investment, in health, you know, the economic growth, everything will thrive. It just goes down to the leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Mpoki. I like how you framed it. So we need more capable leaders, but not only capable leaders, leaders who will put national interest at heart.
Absolutely.
It was very, you know, rewarding, this conversation. And I thank you for taking your time to share your story. very inspiring journey with everyone out there. I hope you found it insightful as much as I did. For more than 15 years of, disrupting the media industry, and he's still disrupting. He's still young, as he said that. So we have a lot of takeaways, a lot of wisdom that we've collected from him.